So how much do you know about spin? You probably understand how spin impacts our ball flight, but do you understand how we generate spin in the first place? How important spin is for driving distance? And why our swing speed dictates the optimal spin rate? So, in this 3-part spin series, I'm going to answer these questions and help you understand the science of golf. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to part 1 of the spin series. I'm Daniel Thompson and today I'm going to explain how we generate spin. So to do this I need to show you the interaction between the club face and the golf ball. So to show you this I'm going to create an animation with the white line representing the club face and the blue line representing the ball. And this animation should provide a visual representation of what happens to the golf ball whilst it's in contact with the club face. So we firstly need to understand the key variables that are responsible for generating spin. These being spin loft, club head speed, and gearing effect. Now we're going to focus on spin loft here because it's directly linked to the mechanism of generating spin. And we'll talk about gearing effect and club head speed in another video. So what is spin loft? Well, quite simply, spin loft is the difference in angle between the dynamic loft and the angle of attack. Now hopefully you've heard these two terms before. Dynamic loft is the angle of the club face at impact, whereas angle of attack is the angle that the club head is travelling at impact. So I'll say that one more time. The dynamic loft is the angle that the club face is pointing at impact. So it could be, for example, 15 degrees. And the angle of attack is the angle that the club head is travelling at impact. And this, let's say, for example, is -5 degrees. So in the numbers that I've just provided, that means there'll be a spin loft of 20 degrees, because spin loft is the difference between the dynamic loft and the angle of attack. And generally, as we increase the spin loft, we get an increase in the amount of spin.
So what does spin loft actually do to the golf ball? Now this is our first step in understanding how spin is generated. So I've set up an experiment here for us. I've got a piece of wood and I've got an old exercise ball. And what we're going to do is I'm going to drop the exercise ball onto the piece of wood, which is the club face, and we're going to see what impact that has upon the ball. So let's give it a go.
So what I want us to focus on here are the lines on the ball. So as you can see, as the ball impacts the club face, the piece of wood, it begins to rotate. And this rotation is really important for the generation of spin. So why does this rotation result in the spin that we see in golf balls? Now to help me explain this, I'm going to use the animation from earlier. Now as the ball impacts the club face, it begins to compress and it stores energy in the ball. And this is used to generate ball speed later on. So let's call this compression impact compression. Now as it compresses onto the club face, it begins to grip the club face. And this is important and I'll explain why in a moment's time. Now also, the ball begins to roll up the face of the club, as we showed in the experiment a little bit earlier. So this presents a little bit of an issue, because the part of the ball that is in contact with the club face isn't going to as easily rotate. This means that the top part of the ball, which is rotating into the face, is going to be rotating faster than the bottom part of the ball going away from the club face. This means that the material at the top of the ball is going faster into the club face than the material at the bottom, going away from the club face. Now what this results in compression at the back part of the ball, which again stores energy. And this stored energy is used to develop spin later on. So this stored energy builds throughout the initial contact with the club face. Now at some point, the stored energy from the impact compression that we discussed earlier on begins to release, generating ball speed. Now as it does this, it loses the grip between the ball and the club face. This means the ball begins to slip. Now the bottom part of the ball slips first. This is because there is less pressure between the club face and the ball at the bottom compared to the top. This slipping results in the stored energy from the spin compression to be released, generating backspin. And this is how spin is generated in a golf shot. So hopefully all of that made sense. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Now in part 2 of the spin series, I'm going to be answering the question, is spin really important for driving distance? So until next time, I've been your host Daniel Thompson, your caddy for all things golf science.